the Radiant You podcast. Here we are, season 2, episode 6, going off script. A huge challenge, yet still choosing radiance. Welcome back. This podcast that helps you glow from the inside out, even when life doesn't follow the plan. I'm your host, Lisa Cole, and today's episode is both a vulnerable share and a powerful exploration. It's called Going Off Script. A huge challenge, yet still choosing radiance. I love that title. That's why I had to say it again. This one is deeply personal, and I have a feeling that it might speak to many of you too. We're going to go through some pillars. I think that pillars are important to help us focus. And pillar 1 is when life doesn't go according to plan. Let's start with what going off script can look like in life. Maybe you had a plan, a certain career path, a clear timeline, a relationship that made sense, a version of yourself you thought you'd be by now. And then the script gets ripped up. Life throws you a curveball. Or your heart starts whispering something new. I call those nudgings. And suddenly, the clear path is gone. You're in the blank page zone. And here's the thing. Blank pages can be terrifying, but they're also full of possibilities. Sometimes what feels like the end of your script is actually where your real radiance begins. Pillar 2, speaking without notes. And for me, this is one of the most tangible and humbling examples of going off script. And boy, is there fear. Oh, the fear. Let me just zoom in and share something a little bit more literal. That going off script hasn't just been a life metaphor. It's a real-time physical challenge for me. Just recently, I was asked to give some presentations at our local high school. And my son, who's a coach there, came to me. We were just chatting about some things, and we talked about the idea of the differences in presentations. And one of his athletes came to him after this wonderful wellness day that the school had set up. And my husband gave his presentations, I gave my presentations, and everyone had their own different rooms, and it was great. However, the response from one of the athletes that my son was coaching at the time said that, oh yeah, your dad, he was just having a conversation, and his presentation was really felt authentic. Your mom, she just read a lot. And oh my goodness, did that cut me to the core. Cut me to the core. And I had to kind of step back. Okay, is this my ego speaking? Is this a real critique that I needed to take on? And I went back and I looked over my notes, but I also looked back over the experience that I had. Each group that I had was getting smaller and smaller, and that's just how the day went with everyone's presentations, not just me as the speaker for that particular presentation. All speakers were experiencing that. But going back and looking at that, I had very little interaction from the students, and that caused me to kind of hit some bumps, some ideas for me that it wasn't flowing the way that I wanted it to flow. The interactions is what I was expecting. So I did have to read a little bit more. But what I also found as I was looking back and critiquing myself from this first critique from this athlete was that I I did read. I did rely more on my structured notes. So there was a whole lot of interaction for me. And I found that when I would go off that script that particular day, there was some big fear. And I started looking back at all of the different scripts that I have followed, scripts in my life. And I noticed that when I give presentations or teach workshops without those structured notes, without my usual outline, it really triggers a very real fear. Like, what if I lose my train of thought? What if I forget something so important? You know, all that research that I've done on all of my presentations, my podcasts, my teachings, everything. What if I forget something important? What if I ramble or blank or say the wrong thing? It's that exposed feeling, like standing on stage with no safety net. But here's the wild thing that I found as I was critiquing myself and really looking deep into those moments. Some of the most radiant moments that I've ever experienced as a speaker happened when I let go of the script, when I had a conversation. I've been asked to speak on another community member's podcast, and I asked, is there something I can prepare for? Is there some questions that you might be asking? And he said, no, we're just going to have a conversation. Well, mind you, he's been doing his podcast for many, many years, and I have not. So, but it was a challenge for me. All of these times of stepping off of script is a challenge for me. And I got to thinking, this might be an opportunity for you to have a challenging moment for you as well. So here's what I also learned. When I softened my grip on perfection and trusted my presence instead of my plan, yes, it's vulnerable. It's real. And it's where the connection lives. I am very excited about getting into this chat with this fellow podcaster, but I'm still very scared, very, very scared. However, there's research that backs this up. There's something called the pratfall effect. It shows that people often find speakers more relatable and trustworthy when they make small mistakes and show up imperfectly. And guess what? That's what I said from the very beginning of this podcast, that I am imperfect and I am going to have a few more ums and I am going to be real and miss some things or repeat some things. But I know that's me. That's authentic. And I know that it relates more sometimes. That's what this particular pratfall effect shows, that it's relatable. Because we're human. Because it feels real. It's not polished, but present. And in those off-script moments, whether on stage or in a life season, we discover something important. We are enough without the script. Let me say that again. We're enough without the script. We're radiant even in the raw moments. We can prepare, yes, absolutely. But life will interrupt. And our work becomes less about perfect delivery and more about presence. Speaking without a script is a metaphor for life. We plan what we can. We stay anchored to what matters. And we practice meeting that what unfolds with grace. Think of those interruptions not as derailments, but as teachable moments. Whether it's a technology glitch mid-presentation or your kiddo walking in while you're doing a Zoom meeting, or a sudden life shift that you didn't ask for. Each interruption invites mindfulness. Each is a chance to pivot with presence. Moving into pillar 3, why it feels so scary and why the fear, why that deep rooted fear, but also powerful. Let's unpack what's going on under the surface. And here are some research highlights. This interesting word is called glossophobia or glossophobia, and it's a term for fear of public speaking. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, about 77% of people experience anxiety about speaking in public. I work with people all the time in my office, and there is such social fear, and this is part of it, speaking in public, giving presentations even in class for my youth that I work with. It's one of the most common fears, more than heights, more than flying, and even death. Amy Cuddy's research on presence from Harvard shows that when speakers connect with their bodies and values before speaking, they're rated as more compelling, even if their delivery isn't perfect. Here's another. It's called the spotlight effect. We often overestimate how much others notice our flaws. Truth is, people are usually rooting for us. And then again, I mentioned earlier the pratfall effect. Mistakes can increase your relatability. If you're generally competent, people like you more when you show some vulnerability. So yes, your brain is trying to keep you safe by scanning for judgment. But your heart, it's inviting you to connect. And connection happens not in the script, but in the real time, being with others. Pillar 4. Here are some tools for speaking without a script, but with radiance. Some of these simple tools I use, and you can too, when stepping into unscripted speaking. Number 1, ground yourself first before speaking. Take 3 deep breaths. Feel your feet drop into your body. You're safe. Number 2, know your anchors. You don't need every word memorized. Know your core message and maybe 3 key points. Let those guide you. Number 3, pause instead of panic. You lose your place or feel overwhelmed, pause. Breathe. Collect yourself. The pause often adds more power than filling the space. Number 4, use a personal story. Stories ground us. Share one small, authentic moment that connects you to your message. It builds trust and helps you remember where you're going. Number 5, practice presence, not performance. Your audience craves real, not perfect. Let go of performing and focus on connecting. I want to go back to number 1. Number 1 was ground yourself. And just take those 3 breaths. I want to share a little bit. I performed a wedding as an officiant this weekend. And the wedding party was running a little bit behind. So I just said I would meet them on the beach where they were going to have their ceremony. I went down to the beach and I walked the sand. I just covered the area. I actually took off my shoes and literally grounded. And I was so ready for this beautiful, short, simple presentation in this ceremony. But what was amazing to me is I felt grounded. And it felt like to me that I needed that for them. I needed to be that for them. So I'm just saying the idea of grounding before any kind of interaction or any kind of presentation, say your prayers, speak it out into the universe. Do what you need to do that's going to help you. There are many times that even before going and sitting with a client and just walking alongside them, I pray over the room. I just get myself ready, grounding, whatever is needed. So I want to talk, getting back to some of these tools, I want to talk about a bonus tool that I came across. And I often will say this to some of my clients. If they can't journal, or if they're feeling that they don't have time, or they're fearful that someone might find it, or whatever it is, something that can help even with presentations is doing some voice journaling. So practice speaking out loud about your topic in like voice notes, really. No pressure, no perfection. Just let your thoughts and feelings flow. Over time, this builds that natural speaking fluency. So there are times, especially if nobody's at my home and I have to do a presentation, I will hang on to the notes, but I'll be walking throughout the house and I'll be practicing without looking, but also looking sometimes. But it's just that, again, that voice journaling. So speak into your phone if you're in your car, or whatever it might take to do a little bit of that practice. So another little bonus pillar I want to add here is, and yes, I am looking at my script because I think this one is really important. The script of life, okay? Planned, spontaneous, and present. Let's look at that. I just want to expand on this metaphor into our everyday life just for a quick moment. Some parts of our life need planning. I mean, let's be real. Bills, logistics, meals, caregiving. But the magic happens when we leave room for that spontaneity. So like in a presentation, you plan your intro, you expect questions or interruptions, and you leave space for moments you didn't rehearse. That's where the presence lives. That's where connection deepens. That's where life teaches. Just like speaking off script, living off script asks us to trust our instincts, be willing to slow down, catch the wisdom in the unplanned. Your kid's outburst might reveal something they're holding inside. Your technology glitch might invite laughter and humility. Your canceled plans might create time for rest or reflection. I'm going to go off script for a minute because I experienced something yesterday. So I had a lot of experiences this weekend, but I experienced something yesterday. My husband and I were looking at maybe getting on our boat or doing some grilling or spending time with family. And everything came to a screeching halt when we were actually kidnapped from a couple of our friends, and they were heading off to dinner with family after an amazing ceremony for them. They had their beautiful daughter graduating, and they scooped us up. We're talking, we had 2 minutes of notification, and I called it kidnapping. It was great. We just enjoyed them. We enjoyed their extended family. And it was just so sweet to be included, but also to know that I could have some spontaneity there, and I didn't have to follow my plans for the day. And there was a blessing there. There was some teachable moments for me there too. And so I wanted to share that we even kidnapped them too. Yeah, we made them go on our boat. So that was really great to have a few moments of just enjoying the air, the sky, the water, the peace, and it was great. So teachable moments are everywhere if you're present enough to notice them. So take a moment. So pillar 5, radiance in the raw. I love that part. I could do a whole podcast just on that. Radiance in the raw. These are unscripted moments. What does it mean to choose radiance when you're off script? It means you trust your voice, even when it trembles. You allow yourself to show up honestly, not perfectly. You give yourself permission to be seen as you are. Radiance is not about saying it all right. It's about being real, being present, being willing. When you go off script and still stand in your light, that is growth. That is courage. That is radiance. And it extends to all the moments where life asks you to pivot, to show up without the answers, to speak with your heart when your head is still catching up. Let's take a few moments and go over some questions that you might want to journal about or just listen and ponder. When have you had to go off script in your life? How did you respond? What did you fear most about being unscripted? Whether in conversation, presentation, or your own journey. Can you remember a time when your authenticity mattered more than your polish? What script are you still trying to follow that might no longer serve you? What's a recent interruption or spontaneous moment that turned out to be valuable? Here are some daily practices that can help build in that confidence in your speaking. Let's try this for 5 days. Set a timer for 3 minutes. Pick a topic you care about. Speak aloud. No notes. Let it be messy. I'm going to do this with you, I promise. End with, and that's what I believe today. You're training your voice to lead with truth instead of fear. There might be some major chaos in all of that. But sometimes it's so great to have organized chaos within that. So I'm still learning to trust myself without a script. I am using a script today. I've gone off script. I went back to my script. So whether it's in front of a room, in a life transition, or even here on this podcast, what I know for sure is this. Your light was never meant to follow someone else's outline. Let me repeat that. Your light was never meant to follow someone else's outline. Your radiance lives in your truth. And when you let yourself speak from there, even when it's messy or chaotic, you are magnetic. So if you find yourself in what feels like that chaos, pause and ask, is this destruction or is this functional chaos? Is it organized chaos? where things might feel wild, but there's still movement, alignment, and purpose underneath. Because sometimes the most radiant growth happens in the unscripted, the chaos, the unpolished, and the unplanned spaces. So here's to going off script, to trusting your rhythm, to shining even in the mess, and to realizing this too might be part of your radiance unfolding. Thanks for being with me today. If this episode resonated, share it with a friend or leave a review. Your support helps this podcast glow. I appreciate you, and remember, radiance is a journey, and by simply showing up, you're already on the right path. Together, we're exploring what it truly means to embrace, celebrate, and shine as your most radiant self. Until next time, keep choosing your radiant, unscripted, real self. Shine your light and be the radiant you.